Hey, how's it going, everybody? Rob Pravanshi here from my office in my basement, and I'm going to do a workflow on this image of my daughter. And I'm doing this for, I was just talking to Josh Berry on Facebook, and he asked me about this image because I had it posted on Facebook. So I said, okay, I'll make a tutorial, mostly to do with the Photoshop workflow. I'm going to talk a little bit about lighting and stuff. But first of all, every year I photograph my daughter. Last year, when she was 15, I had a picture of her with her pony. There's another shot here with her pony from the same shoot. And, so every year to commemorate her birthday, I do a portrait session of her. This year, decided to do something in the studio. She's 16. I wanted to do something a little more painterly looking, so something a little more high key, obviously, a little more classic. So that's why, if you look closely, you can see the lighting on this image. It's actually Rembrandt lighting. Well, I guess more modified loop. It could be Rembrandt. It's just the lighting is so soft that the shadows are very they blend in. The transition from shadow to highlight to the main tone it's not a sharp edge, so it's a very soft light source. But I've also got the light, and you can tell by the reflection in the eyes, the specular highlight. I've got the light coming down at a sharp angle, sort of high, 45 degrees, maybe a little more than 45 degrees, to create the desired effect. Sort of a Rembrandt style lighting, and that's kind of what I was after. Now, just so you know, when you're doing Rembrandt lighting, it's often not a good idea to have them big smiles. It's typically better if your subject's more like a Mona Lisa, and it's the expression I have here. And because when you have lots of lines, they are emphasized with that lighting because there's sort of a lot of shadowing that can happen. So I'm not even sure that this is Rembrandt lighting. It looks to me a little more modified loop lighting, but it's kind of heading in that direction. Anyways, I'll shut up and go on now. So now, by the way, she's not naked or topless. She has a halter top on, and I grabbed some tooling that I have from my studio, and I had her hold it. And I'm going to soften the edges so that it blends and goes into a pure white, and this image would get cropped, and I'll show you that later. So here we have 300 dpi, 14.1.87 by 9.44 inches wide. That's right off the camera. Now my settings on the camera are, I've got the sharpening turned up a little bit, and I've got the set to picture mode standard, and I've turned the contrast up a little bit. So the camera is actually doing a little bit of the work for me in contrast and sharpening department. That, where you want to set your cameras up to you. I used to set my camera at neutral, and they'd come out really flat, but that gave me a lot more leeway when I did that. You had to kind of know a little more where you wanted to go when you set your camera at neutral. But in the last couple of years, I've been setting the camera tones up a little bit. I shoot 100% JPEG, just so you know, before I get onto this image. I know I'll shut up soon. See my exposure? Exposure's pretty good. That's the most important thing when you're shooting JPEG is exposure, and there's always seen it's still a little bit of leeway. So I'm pushing exposure right to the wall. This is my background right here. That's okay. I want it to go pure white. If you analyze it a little bit, right here, view info. You can see right there, 255 right across the board. It's overexposed, and that's good. Oh, down here we got a little bit of detail. RGB is coming out a little at the low 250s, high 247s, and the idea is you want to get a good base down, good exposure, good white balance. I always use a custom white balance in the studio, and I do a lot of sessions. Every month I'm doing 30, 40 reasonably decently paid sessions. Very busy. So I shoot JPEG to save time, and that's the reason why. Don't try and convince me, please. Been there, done that. Anyways, so this image here, it's got a good base to it. So the first thing I want to do is I'm going to go to Unsharp Mask. Now this is 2060, which is defog. It's not a sharpening technique. I am not sharpening the image. So let's look at what I just did. Before, after. All I did was take that haze away. Okay, some people feel that this destroys, this is an effect that is destructive, and I say, give me a break. We do softening, we used to use portrait film back in the film days, yada yada yada. As long as the image looks good. I mean, that's the most important thing. So I'm going to start with the eyes, and I'm going to work my way out through the skin, and I'll show you exactly what I do. So she's got a little bit of bloodshot, so I always go for the clone. Oh, by the way, I'm in Photoshop 7 because I'm on my laptop, because my microphone doesn't work on my workflow computer where I use CS4. But I want to tell you, man, it doesn't matter what version you're using. It really, really, to me, doesn't matter. So I'm going to clone out some of that redness. Okay, let's turn the opacity up a little more. Cloning out the redness. Okay, now what I want to do is I want to clone out that shine. Let's bring that up. Nice little small little brush size there. We used to do this back in the film days. Oh, back in the day when we were shooting film. We'd have these prints that we'd work on with pencils and lacquer sprays, and we'd do all this kind of stuff. It was so cumbersome. Alright, so there we go. So I got rid of most of the red. Whoops, that's too strong. By the way, I use shortcuts quite a bit. Sometimes you'll see me go back in history. It's Alt-Control-Z or Command-Alt-Z, I believe, on a Mac. I'm always using shortcuts. So now I'm going to use the Dodge tool. Now you got to be very careful when you do this. You use a nice soft brush. Why can't I see that? Hold on. I got my cap locks on. Hold on. I'm getting there. For some reason I can't see the brush, and I know the reason why. There we go. So I'm using my left bracket and right bracket to upsize, downsize. So I'm just going to dodge. Right now I'm dodging. There's the dodge tool at a low opacity, low exposure. I'm going to brighten the whites of the eyes a little bit. I'm also going to brighten the iris. Now if you wanted to, you could go to saturation. You can increase the saturation. Click OK, go back in history, put the history palette on, the use saturation history state, and use a history brush. And then just paint in some extra color. Sometimes I do that. Whoops. There, let's paint that in now. Give it a little more blue. So I'm going to dodge this side. Dodging, dodging, dodging. And let's go dodge the iris. And then history brush. Bring in a little more blue. Let's go and dodge the speculars, and if you want you can add another specular down below here. I know some people use the feather to put 6. Some people use a fake specular and they just go in there and then they dodge that, you know, and you can add whatever technique works for you. Speculars are a matter of taste. So you can see I've added a fake specular there. But for the sake of argument, let's not even worry with the speculars on the bottom of the eyes. I see a little bit of red there still. I don't like playing with the eyes too much. It won't look natural. Now you can go in and use the burn tool, okay, with a very small brush. Very small, and just go in to bring that exposure down. You can just darken the line, the lashes. We used to do this with black and lacquers back in the old days. Oh, back in the old days. I can darken the eyeliner, just intensify it a little more. You know, I'm not that artistic, but for those who are and who want to really kind of work this up and spend the extra time, and I know there's a lot of advanced techniques for Glamour fashion magazine type workflow that you can use. So now I'm going to go and clone. Okay, I put it on normal. I'm just going to go clone. See, that lighting's kind of brought out her eyes, but my daughter has inherited from her mom these lines under her eyes. God forbid she never got them from me. She's got a couple little blemishes there. I don't want to take it out completely. Alright. She's got a little thing on her lip right there. Right there. Now if you wanted to, you could go in and burn. Just to give her lips a little bit of definition. Okay, but I'm going to take that off. I'll take the lower part off anyways. Boop, boop, boop. Now let's go to curves. I just want to open up the curves. And I'm going to open the midtones up a bit. Just a very gentle sloping curve here. Alright, let's do this. I'm almost done, by the way. I'm going to use topaz. A little bit of topaz. And we'll see what kind of an effect. You got to watch topaz. It can be very deadly. It can kill an image. We get a little excited about it. Now, I'm not worried about the background. See how it's getting banding? Some serious banding. I'm only concerned with the skin tone. So I'm going to look at the different effects here. Usually I use Photopop. Portrait Drama, enhanced contrast sometimes. Dramatics not bad, a little too pale, not bad though. Small details, mild or detail. I'm going to go to mild. Those are generally the settings that I work with. Okay, so it's a little too heavy, but that's okay. Watch what we're going to do. Okay, so we got before and after. Okay, so I'm going to go back to before, and I need a history brush. You can use a history brush and go into the topaz state. By the way, my workflow workspace is always history, actions, and layers. I've been like that since I was digital, since day one. I've never found any other purpose for any other tools. Never got into masking or anything. So now I'm going to go history brush. Okay, I've set it to right here. Topaz adjusts that state there. Put the history brush on that state, and now I'm going to erase into the scene some of that. I'm going to go a little heavier on the hair because it has a wonderful effect on hair, as you can tell. Okay, a little bit down below. Let's just go a little bit more. Clean up her skin just a bit. I like high key. It's always been one of my favorite. Okay, now I'm going to run Hajisoft. Of course, the Hajisoft is was originally called the Softar, the Nobius Softar, but James, in his infinite wisdom, changed the name. He sort of modified the action. It's all good. It's essentially the same action with a little more control, because now you get to adjust the Gaussian blur, and you want to go a little bit heavier when you run. By the way, we still use this action in our studio to this day on all our work. And you know, it's December as I write or create this tutorial for you, and I have done more freaking canvases. We use Simply Canvas, simplycanvas.com. out of Ohio. Their work is stunning. But my point is, the workflow I'm showing you right now is exactly the same workflow I use in my studio. Day in, day out, we have a girl who works at her computer, and I've trained her to do exactly as I'm doing. And I tell her, I say, look, when you're working with the Hajisoft, you got to kind of use discretion. It's not just a plug and play, and just it's not idiot proof. You got to use discretion. You got to have an artistic eye. Okay, so now with varying opacity, we get to now erase back in some of the original image. We can erase away the soft. Now I'm always going to erase like almost at 100 or at 100 the eyes. I want the eyes to pop right through. I'm going to erase the lips, because I want that silky smooth over the skin. Now she's got a little too much silky smooth, and that's okay. What we're going to do is do the history brush. We're going to bring it down, way down, and I'm going to erase a little bit, but not all of it, just some of it. And that's about it. Alright, let's crop this out. Let's go for an 8 by 10. 8 by 10, 200. All my stuff goes to the lab. All my stuff goes to Simply Canvas. Whatever I'm printing, 200 DPI. I don't need any more than that. Is that centered? I'm going to recrop that. Not that it always has to be centered, but it's been a long day. 2 days till Christmas, Christmas Eve. Okay, now what I want to do, I'm going to hit the dodge tool, crank that brush up, crank that exposure up. Let's go to highlights. Let's erase some of the bottom. Okay, let's go back to midtones. Let's erase some of the shadows. All right, let's go back to highlights. Whoa. It's a little too strong there, buddy. I love the dodge tool in the burn tool. I've seen photographers do some really creative stuff. They use it like a paintbrush, and it's destructive. I know. Sometimes you can use it on walls, and it looks like there's light, streaming light. If you're good, you're kind of artistic. You know, so that's it. That's it in a nutshell. Let me go to my curves. I'm going to open up that mid-tone a bit more. There you go. History. So we're going to compare that to the final product. Sorry, where'd it go? There it is. See, and I went 3-4 times as long as I normally would on an image like this, because I took my time to explain everything. But normally, I would work at a pretty good clip. There's not much more to it. But let me show you one more thing before I close off. Y'all probably know this. Use saturation, colorize, 25-25. There's my sepia. Okay. I can go Shift Control F or Command Shift F, which is the shortcut for fade, or edit fade. You get the fade the previous step if you don't do anything else. And I can go and I can get rid of the sepia or introduce the sepia partially. or 100%. You know, but sometimes with an image of ladies, little girls and whatnot, it's really nice to have half sepia. It just has a mysterious look to it. And you look at it and you go, wow, there's something about that. You know, so there's really no plugins, there's no secret to this. It's really, really simple. Let me show you how you do black and white. Bingo. That's it. I still do black and white that way in the studio, okay? I hear these ridiculous arguments about using these plugins, getting these big files, these, I don't know, it's all got to do with how big the file is. I mean, who cares? As long as the image looks good. Now, I do find that when you're in black and white, you tend to lose a bit of contrast. It's a simple fix. Just give it more contrast. Sometimes, not always, I'll run the defog. Look at that. See the unsharp mask? Let me show you that again. I'm going to show it manually. I sometimes will do this in a black and white image. See, remember 2060, okay, which is unsharp. By the way, that's not a sharpening tactic. That's just a way to get that haze out, to introduce a little more snap to the image. When I want to sharpen the image, okay, I'll talk about that before I close. There we got an 8x10. This is old stuff. James and I have been teaching this from the Big Kahunas, and we've still to this day, I sharpen my images the same way. Okay, so I go print size, unsharp. So assuming it's ready to go, I've sized it now for the actual print. So the sharpening is determined by the print size. So an 8x10 would get a different sharpening than a 16x20 than a 30x40. Okay, so we go 500, and then we bring the radius up. Until it pops, that's probably a bit too much. So in this case, 500.2 and 0, and that's my sharpening. Okay, do you need any more? And again, that's our workflow in the studio. So breaking all the rules, but that's how I work that image. And I always like to remind you, start with a good exposure. The image on the left is a good exposure. The image on the right, JPEG, totally destroyed. Do you think the client really notices? Do you think my wife really cares how I work that image up? Do you think my daughter cares? Well, my daughter cares because she's 16, and 16-year-old girls are they're just never happy. I'm joking. Of course she's happy. She's got me for a dad. Life is good. All right, guys, that's it. If you have any questions, feel free to email me. Thank you. Thanks for watching.